Great. If I could get everyone to take their seats, I'm going to run through a few housekeeping issues first. My name is Karen Kaplan, and I will be moderating this evening's UTHealth House Calls. And given that we are on the Mercedes-Benz showroom, it is quite a shame that I can't say that my name is Oprah Winfrey and you get a car and you get a car. But I could say that, but I would be lying. But I will have some really, really nice health information to share with you all. Just a few details about tonight. As most of you know, our UTHealth House Call events are being filmed, are being taped, and are streaming live on abc13.com, on Facebook Live, and on YouTube. Though most likely you will not be picked up by the cameras if the back of your head suddenly gets shy, or you didn't own up to the parents of your grandchildren that you were here to augment their lacking parenting skills. Please sit off to the sides or toward the back. And since cameras are running, we gratefully ask that your own questions for Dr. Love and for Dr. Davidson be submitted using your own smart devices, because we will not be taking questions from the floor. So how to do that: at each one of your seats is an instruction card, and then you can look up here as well. You just simply text the word Mercedes to this number, 25827. And you'll receive a reply thanking you, and then you can put in your question. Now, we probably won't get to every question because we are also accepting them from the viewership who will be watching us shortly once we go live. But please take advantage of the fact that you are a live audience, and you have two physicians face to face, up close and personal. So after we've finish filming live, both of these wonderful professionals will be around to answer your questions, and that you can get the answers to them, and they won't leave till every question is answered. So grab your last glass of wine or water or whatever the refreshments are du jour, and grab a seat, and we will be starting in about 30 seconds. Thank you.
Is he going to give me a signal? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to UTHealth House Calls 2019. This is presented by the Mercedes-Benz Dealers of Greater Houston. My name is Derek Brown. I'm with Mercedes-Benz of Sugar Land, and on behalf of our president and owner, Mr. Ken Enders, and the entire team that we have here, we'd like to thank you for joining us. We know we expected some unique weather, and it looks like we all got here okay, and please enjoy the food and drinks in the back at your convenience. This is the third of 7 UTHealth House Calls throughout the area that will cover a variety of health topics. Tonight's focus is healthy children and families, and we're really excited to have you here and to share this educational experience with you. We all have a bunch of different titles floating in this room professionally. We all do different things. But there's other titles that we wear 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, like mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, and uncle. Those are our most important titles that we have, and those are the titles that have guided our decisions in the community for the last 16 years. So tonight's really special because it aligns with our focus. We partner with the Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center with STEM initiatives. We educate through our teen safety driving schools that are exclusive to our dealership. And then we outreach through our partnerships in the First Class Access program based on our support of children and families. It's incredibly important. Those titles mean everything to us. So tonight we enhance that focus. We have the expertise here of Dr. Love. We're excited to partner again with UTHealth and to bring this to you all. It's important to bring awareness to the work that's being done by many of those unseen, researchers, providers, and faculty with the UT physician clinics and so forth. Tonight is special not only because we're here, but because we're going to contribute 2 $5,000 scholarships to the one of UTHealth's 6 schools. It will be the Cizik School of Nursing. These will go. Thank you. These will go to 2 first-year students that meet the standards of excellence expected by all UT Health students. So we're excited to do that, and again, to partner with UT Health on this special evening. You don't want to hear from me anymore, so let's get right to it. Tonight's moderator is Ms. Karen Kaplan. She is a medical journalist and a longtime member of the UT Health community. I'm going to hand things off to Karen and Dr. Love. Thank you again for joining us. Karen.
Thank you, Derek. I think he took my job. He was great. I have the pleasure of serving as moderator for the UT Health House Calls series, and thanks to Mercedes-Benz of Sugarland and ABC13.com, it is just such a wonderful way to bring the answers to all your, or as many of your health questions as we can. Tonight's house call topic is summer safety and back to school readiness. And making that house call is clinician, educator, administrator, and pediatrician. She wears many hats, Dr. LaTanya Love. Dr. Love is Associate Professor of Pediatrics, Associate Dean of Admissions and Student Affairs for McGovern Medical School. She is also Vice President for Diversity and Inclusion at UT Health. And most important for us tonight, she is a practicing pediatrician at UT Physicians and is here to help keep our kids, and in my case, the grandkids, safe and happy this summer as they transition back to school. It's also my pleasure to recognize pediatrician, an adolescent medicine specialist, Dr. Asha Davidson, who will be pounding away at the computer answering questions submitted by our viewership. The Q&A portion of our program will be moderated by me, so please, fellow grandparents out there in the webosphere, we must unite. Our kids need our help in raising their own children. Send in your questions. And without further ado, please welcome Dr. LaTanya Love.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to those of you who are tuning in from home. This is one of my exactly favorite topics to talk about, and near and dear to my heart because, as Derek said, the hat that many of us in this room wear 24/7 is parent, and I have 2 children, Andrew and Amaya, 11 and 13, so I've been through different stages, and I have to tell you that they have made me a better pediatrician because there are things that I have learned being a parent that they just don't teach you in medical school and in the medical books. So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about summer safety, keeping your kids and family safe and healthy for the remainder of the summer, and then we're going to end with a few back-to-school tips. So hopefully everybody is enjoying their summer. Summertime is a lot of fun. Most of the kids are extremely happy because they are not in school and they're sleeping late. We're a little bit looser on some of our habits and some of the schedules and routines that we have during the school year, so they're really having a blast. For parents, it's kind of hit or miss. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you're enjoying. It's really nice to spend time with your kids. But I have to tell you, now that we're halfway through, I keep looking at my calendar. When do they go back to school? So, you know, it's just summertime, a lot of emotions go on with summer. So we're going to start with a few safety tips for the summer. Hopefully, some of you guys have had an opportunity to enjoy some vacation with your family. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how we can stay healthy and safe. So as a pediatrician, I like to keep things real basic. We're not going to be talking in medical terms here. We're going to just go back to the ABCs because that's what pediatricians like. We like to keep things very basic and very simple. So the first thing we're going to talk about is something that unfortunately we hear so much about throughout the summer years. It seems like you cannot turn on the news and not hear about some type of drowning or near drowning. At Children's Memorial Hospital, we deal with a lot of those. They are taken there where we treat those patients, and it really is something that's unfortunate. And so we just want to kind of go over some of the things that we can do to prevent those near drownings, those accidents that happen to water. Because look, we live in Houston. We've got triple degree weather here. It's hot. We like to swim. We like to go to the pools, but we really want to make sure that our loved ones are safe. So the ABCs of water safety. So the first thing is probably the most important thing, the A, and that is adult supervision. I cannot stress enough how important it is for us to have our eyes on our kids or whoever we're watching at the pool at all times. I think we've all heard the stories where I was standing right there, I was watching, I turned my back, or you get distracted because maybe your phone rings or you're going to grab something to eat or something to drink, and in a split second, kids can drown or have near drowning. So adult supervision is key. If you are there with other adults, tag team. Take time and say, for these 15 minutes, I am the watchdog. You really should be an arm's length from those kids so that if you notice a child or another person in the pool is in distress, you can easily get to them. So very, very important to have adult supervision. You want to make sure you're alert, avoid distractions, avoid alcohol, just so you can be on alert when you're watching your loved ones, friends, and family in the pool. So the B of the ABCs of water safety is barriers. So a lot of us have pools in our backyards. A lot of grandparents may have pools, and the kids come over in the summer, and it's a lot of fun. But if you have a pool, one of the things as pediatricians we really recommend is a perimeter fence around the pool. And I know maybe it takes away from the aesthetics of your backyard oasis, but it is so important to have a fence around the pool so it makes it harder for a young child to get into that pool when they're not supposed to be there. It should be at least 4 feet high. It should have self-locking, self-latching doors so that it's easy to close. Did you guys know that drownings is actually the #1 cause of death in children ages 1 to 4? And so that's why this is such an important topic, and we really, really have to stress this. Another barrier is pool door alarms. So if you do have a pool in your house, it's really nice to have an alarm on that door so that when that door opens and you're saying, where is my child, where is that kid, it can alert you to make sure that they are not going out there when they are not supposed to be. The other thing that I always recommend too is when we go to the pools, we have all kinds of cool inflatables. I think the thing that's in right now is the inflatable swans. I keep seeing those everywhere. You have the balls and things like that. You want to make sure you remove all those toys and inflatables when you get out of the pool, because those are the things a lot of times that attract children to go back into the pool. So definitely you want to try to make the pool less attractive so that your children, your loved ones don't get out there when they really are not supposed to be. And so the C in the ABCs of water safety is classes. So it's really important to enroll your children into swim classes so that they are comfortable with the water. There are a lot of adults that also do not know how to swim, and swim lessons do not have any age discrimination. You can start any time. So if you are an adult and you do not know how to swim, there's no time like the present. Lots of options to get swim classes in the area, through your local YMCA, through your local parks and recreation, lots of options. So I highly encourage everybody in this room to take swim classes, to enroll your children, enroll those grandchildren in swim classes. The other class that we like to recommend is CPR classes. And that's really important because if you do find yourself in an emergency situation, it's really nice to have those skills. You can even take CPR classes online now. It's really nice to kind of know what to do if you were to find somebody unresponsive. It's just, you hope you never ever need to use it, but it's really nice to know that if you do need to use it, you feel a little bit more empowered. So ABCs of water safety: adult supervision, barriers to that pool, and take those CPR and swim classes. Okay, so the next kind of topic we're gonna talk about is sun safety, because again, we live in Houston, Texas. It's very, very hot here. In the summertime, hopefully our children are a lot more active, that they're getting outside, they're doing more. Hopefully they're not couch potatoes. My teenage son, if I would let him, he would love to sit and play video games, Fortnite, watch YouTube videos from sunrise to sunset. He would do it all day long. He would love to do that. But you really want to encourage your kids to get active. Some kids are having sports practices during the summer. So ABCs of that. So the first one is the A. So I really recommend avoiding being out in the sun during peak hours. Does anybody know what peak hours are? What would you say those would be? 11 to 2, so about 10 to 2 is usually when the sunbeams, the sun rays are at its peak. And so you really want to try to stay inside and really try to avoid the sun during those hours if you can. And if you do have to go out in small spurts. Don't stay out there for, hours. Make sure that you're staying very hydrated. You're drinking lots of water. If you're out there sweating a lot, you're replacing electrolytes with electrolyte replacement fluids. So really try to avoid that sun during those peak hours and do more of those outdoor activities early in the morning or in the evening. So a lot of football practices, a lot of lacrosse practices, they usually don't even start now till 6:30. And I think that's really good because we don't want our children in that equipment in those peak sun hours. So the B is blocking the sun. So sunscreen is so important for all of us in the room and also for our children. So we like you to have an SPF factor, sun protection factor of 30 is what I like. There's some that are 15, but an SPF factor of 30, a broad spectrum sunscreen because that's going to protect you against the UVA rays and UVB. UVA rays are rays that cause more long-term damage to your skin. So that's what causes all those wrinkles and, aging and things like that. And it can also lead to skin cancer. The UVB rays are what we see when we're out in the sun and we get sunburned. And so a lot of the sunscreens really target towards UVB, but if you see on the package that it says broad spectrum, then that's protecting you against both of them. So how often should we reapply sunscreen when we're out and about? Any guesses? Every 3 hours, every hour. So usually every 2 hours we recommend. If you are in the water and you're sweating it off, we recommend more frequently. But every 2 to 3 hours you should definitely reapply that sunscreen. And I think that's one of those things that people sometimes forget, me included. And here's a thing. We all need sunscreen. Even those of us who have a little bit more melanin, we all need sunscreen. And I think that's a myth, too, that if you are African American, you don't need sunscreen. Yes, you do. We all need sunscreen, and we want to avoid the dangers of the sun. So make sure that you're reapplying it every few hours and that you're using a broad spectrum. So the C of the ABCs of sun safety is covering up. So if you're going to be out working in your yard, if you're going to be out playing, mowing the grass, you are going to want to have on long sleeves, lightweight, light-colored clothing to try to protect your skin. We love hats. Brimmed hats are really good because that also offers some shade. And you got to protect those beautiful eyes and put on sunglasses. So you've got to cover up when you are outside in the sun for a long time. So ABCs of sun safety: avoid the sun during peak hours. Make sure that you have on your block, your sunblock, your sunscreen, and cover up when you can. When you have children out in the sun, we really don't like sunscreen in our younger infants, less than 6 months. So they have, more sensitive skin, thinner skin. So we really like to keep them shaded. So a lot of times, if you have to be out in the sun, make sure it's a stroller that has, shade to it so that they can be covered. Limit the time that they're in the sun. If you are out at the beach, make sure you have an umbrella so that you're covered up. So find shade whenever you can, even if it's at a tree, under a tree. Find shade to protect yourself from the sun as much as you can. So we've talked about water safety. We've talked a little bit about sun safety. So now let's talk about a few travel tips. Traveling with children can sometimes be daunting. I myself personally just came back from traveling with my kids, and I love them a whole lot, but when you're with them 24/7 for 7 days, you're coming back saying, where's the vacation from the vacation, right? So you need that vacation from the vacation. So we want to make sure you have a fun and safe travel on vacation. So the A part for the ABCs of traveling, I like to think about activities. I think whenever you're traveling with a child, it's really important to have activities to try to occupy their time. So if you're doing a long car ride where you're traveling somewhere, if you're getting on the plane, if you're staying in a hotel room where they just don't have as much room to kind of run around, it's nice to have some activities to keep them occupied. I always say this is a good time to kind of introduce a new toy, a new book, because maybe they'll be a little bit more excited about it because it's not something that they're used to. But you want to have activities so that you do not hear, "Are we there yet? I'm bored." Or in my case, I have the teenage son, "I'm hungry. We just ate, but I'm hungry again." So you want to make sure you have lots of activities for them. So the B part is making sure that you're buckling up when you are traveling. So making sure that your children have the appropriate car restraint, whether that's a 5-point harness, whether that's a booster seat, making sure that you're either bringing that with you on your vacation, or if you're going somewhere where you're renting a car, or if grandparents are picking up, make sure you have thought about the approved and the safety car seat for your child. And if you do take a child on a plane, there's lots of FAA approved car seats that can go on a plane. You can take those if you choose to as well, just to add that extra layer of security for your child and safety while they're on the airplane. So making sure that you buckle up. And when your kids are in the back seat, when you as an adult are in the back seat, every passenger in that car needs to be buckled up. So when you work at a trauma center and you see unfortunate preventable accidents, you will never not buckle up when you get into a car. So very, very important. So the C is, consulting your pediatrician before you're taking major trips. Some people travel internationally into other countries over the summer. You want to make sure you talk and consult with your pediatrician or your family doctor about what are the vaccines that I may need if I'm going through this country. The CDC has a wonderful website that really you just put in the country you're going to, and just based on the region you're going to, it'll tell you these are the vaccines that you need. You may need other medications such as malaria prophylaxis. So those are really good things to make sure you consult with your pediatrician or family care doctor about what are the things I need for my travels. The other thing that I always like to say with the ABCs, the C is courteous. Try and be courteous to families that are traveling with children, especially young children. It's not easy. And I know none of us really like to, get seated. Sometimes you get on the airplane and you're like, oh, I'm, sitting right next to a baby. I'm not going to get any rest, any work done on this plane, but try to be courteous and really understanding. It is rough sometimes. I was somebody that had 2 children under 2. I had my kids back to back, and so I can remember one time I had to fly alone with these young children, and of course, they have temper tantrums when you're trying to board the plane. My son always liked to kick the person's seat, and try to just be courteous and understanding. Try not to, give those looks. A friendly smile, warm face goes a long way to a family that is probably tired traveling with their children. So try to remember to be courteous to your fellow passengers as well. So final summer tips that we're going to talk about. So the final ABC. So the final A is going to be accidents. So we know accidents happen. Hopefully our kids are being active. They're riding their bicycles. They may be out on bicycles, scooters, skateboards, but they have to be wearing their helmets. Now, some kids don't like to wear helmets. It's not cool, but it's really necessary to protect them in case there is an injury. We want to make sure that they have their helmets, that they're protected. Knee pads, elbow pads, just kind of depending on the activity that they want to do. One thing that I really don't like, but a lot of kids like, are trampolines, right? I mean, most kids would love to bounce and bounce in a trampoline for hours and hours, but trampolines, pediatricians, we don't like trampolines, and that's because we've seen too many accidents and too many people fall off of those trampolines. So just be really careful if your child is in a trampoline. It's better if they have, the net to kind of protect them. Tell your child this is not the time to try your new gymnast moves out, to try to do these somersaults and backflips and all of that. They try to do that, but it's really important to try to be careful because trampolines can be dangerous for our children. So the final B in our summer safety tips is bugs. Most of us do not like bugs. We hate those pesky mosquitoes that are around. So it's very important to use insect repellent for yourself and for your children. We like insect repellents that have DEET in it. You do not need more than 30% DEET in it, but DEET just can protect a little bit more. It protects against mosquitoes, protects against different viruses that can be transmitted like West Nile. It can protect against other things as well, like ticks. So we like to have insect repellent with DEET. Make sure you apply it on all exposed body areas. I spray it on my kids' clothes if we're going to be outside for a long time. For the face, I don't recommend you spray the face, obviously, but just spray it in your hands, rub it on the face, avoid, obviously, the eyes, the nose, the mouth. But we want to try to protect ourselves from those mosquitoes. The other thing I like to protect myself from and my children in the summer is bees. We don't want to have those bee stings, but it happens. So try to actually avoid floral prints because those are some of the things that attract bees. Perfumes, we want to smell good, but you don't want to, when you're outside, you want to be careful about very heavy scented perfumes, soaps, lotions, and things like that because those can attract those unwanted friends as well. It's also nice to keep a first aid kit in your house and keep one in your car. So if you're like out at the park, you have a first aid kit with just some basic essentials, Band-Aids, some antibiotic ointment, things like that. It's very nice to have that gauze just in case. You just never know when you will need it. And so then the last C that I think about with summer safety is the issue of childcare. A lot of us during the summer, sometimes kids are in camps and they have activities. Younger kids are usually still in daycare. You may have family members that can take care of your children, but there's a lot of people that have older kids that they're leaving at home because you're at work during the day. So you want to make sure if you do have a child that is at home during the summer that you really have some talks about what to do if there's an emergency. We sometimes get asked, what age can my child stay at home by themselves? And I always say, that's not a decision that I can make for you. That is something that as parents, you have to look at your children's maturity level. You have to look at your comfort with the situation. You have to think about how long are you going to be gone and leaving them unattended. But make sure if you are leaving your kids home, this is really more applicable to older kids. If you're leaving them home, that you have set boundaries so that they know, there should be no friends here without your permission. Do not answer the door. What would they do, if there was an emergency? Do they know your number and maybe an emergency contact number outside of having to look at their cell phone? Because nowadays we don't keep address books. All of our numbers are in our cell phones and our contacts. So if you're leaving your children alone, make sure you have emergency numbers that are written out and they know where they are. Talk about, if they're cooking something, are they allowed to use the stove? Are they allowed to use the oven? Are they allowed to use the microwave? Everybody should have a fire extinguisher in your house. Do they know where that is? Do they know how to use it? So it's a good time to kind of think about things that we take for granted and, kind of go through the drill of, making sure running through these things with your children that are staying home by themselves. So the last thing I want to talk about with summer safety is just hurricane preparedness. And I think you guys know why I'm mentioning that, because we, have been hearing over the past few days about the new storm that is forming in the Gulf, and for a minute they didn't know, was it coming towards Texas? But I think it's always a good reminder that we are in hurricane season, and unfortunately, those of us here have been through a few hurricanes, and it's a good time to make sure that you're prepared. If you are somebody that is on medication, or if you have a family member, a child that's taking medication, and there's a threat of a hurricane or a tropical storm, you want to make sure that you have at least a 7-day supply of that medication, because you know that if we undergo a major hurricane, if our city's underwater, you can't just go to the CVS or go to the pharmacy and pick those things up. So make sure you have that. If you have a family member that is on equipment that is, things like oxygen, or maybe they have a ventilator, so different types of equipment that they use at home, what is your backup battery power for that if it's not being used? So we take care of a lot of chronic patients with complex problems, and we see this all the time. So these are things that we have to think about, and we want to make sure that you're thinking about that as well. And of course, the other essentials, making sure you have your water, gas in your car, just the things that we've been hearing about a lot in the news lately. So just think about that. And also, again, for adults, making sure you have emergency contact numbers that are not just in your phone, because that's what we tend to do right now, is keep every number that you know is in your contacts and you don't necessarily know it by heart. Okay, so we talked about summer safety tips and how we can keep ourselves safe and healthy for the rest of the summer. Let's talk about back to school, because we are going to blink and school is going to be starting. And you know what that means? That means the traffic gets worse. Do you guys notice that when school's in session, the traffic is worse? So there's a lot of things that go on when we go back to school. So let's talk about some ABCs for getting ready for back to school. So the A I like to think about is anxiety. Kids get very anxious about going back to school, and there's a lot of reasons for that. You are going to a new class, you may be going to a new school, you are going to have new teachers, a new routine. The thing about children love routine. I guess adults, do we like routine too? Kind of, yeah. I guess it's a human nature to really like routine. So you must realize that there's a lot of different emotions that your children may be feeling about going back to school. So you want to make sure you are having conversations. Are you excited about going to school? Are you nervous? If they say, yeah, I'm a little nervous, ask them, what are you nervous about? And so you can try to ease that anxiety a little bit more. Showing them what that routine is going to be when the school year starts, if they're going to be walking to school, riding the bus, riding their bikes, making sure that you do a trial run before the first day of school is really, really nice. A lot of schools have kind of back to school mixers before school actually starts so kids can meet other kids, and that's nice, and meet the teacher night is usually before school starts, so that's really nice as well. So make sure that you are talking to your children about how they are feeling about school. The B part is bedtime routine. So that is so important because we're usually lax in the summer about, bedtime and maybe letting your children sleep in a little bit longer. You got to start getting them back on their routine. So as we get closer to school, I really encourage you to make sure that you have your child going to bed whatever time their bedtime is going to be during the school year. If you have an older child and they are going to be waking themselves up with their alarm clock, then you want them to start doing that right now. You have them set that alarm clock so they can get used to getting out of bed, laying their clothes out, getting themselves ready, getting their breakfast together. So I think that is also very important, is getting back on that sleep schedule. That's hard, though. It's really tough, but it's very important, so it'll save you a lot of drama that first week of school that you can have with those kids. So the C, there's a lot of C's. A lot of things you got to cut down on as we're getting ready to go back to school. Cutting down on screen time, really trying to get your children to remember that you cannot be on your social media, on your phones, watching TV, all hours of the day. So you need to start cutting down on that. Cutting down on the junk food because, kids tend to veg out a little bit more in the summer when you go on vacation. A lot of us don't have as healthy eating habits when we're on vacation. So you really want to get back into healthy meals, healthy snacks, making sure your children are, starting the morning off with breakfast. All of that is really important. And then you want to make sure you're getting your checkup with your pediatrician or your family doctor prior to going back to school. A lot of kids will need sports physicals. They may need forms filled out if they have asthma, if you have allergies, and there's forms that you need your physician to fill out. Make that appointment now. It's human nature to wait till the last minute. And in August, boy, do we see a mad rush of people trying to get sports physicals, trying to get their vaccines. July is a great time. We'd love to see you. Come see us so we can take care of you. We would love to. So make sure you are doing that as well. So those are kind of my back to school tips. I think we are going to turn it back over to Karen because we want to hear from you all now and hear some of the questions that our viewers and those of you in the audience have so we can answer those.
Great, thank you so much. That was a great review. So yes, we have several questions already, and I'm going to start with, let's see, this is on, it's a twist on water safety. So much has been in the news about waterborne diseases like...
It's something that you generally see if somebody's swimming like in lakes and ponds. So some of the things that we would recommend is that, if your child has like an open wound, a cut, don't let them go into the water because they have, a break in the skin and that can be risk for infection. making sure that everybody rinses off, uses good hand hygiene when you're getting out of the water as well. And, good safety habits, when you're in water, if your child is sick, so like if they're having a diarrheal episode or something like that, you don't want to put your children into the water if they're sick, because sometimes that's how things are spread. So you have to be really, really careful and very, very cautious about those things.
Great, thank you. We've had several questions actually on bullying. And the questions range in age from very young children to the mean girl, 12, 13, 14, and the anxiety of these kiddos going back to school to face the bully. So what can parents do to ameliorate some of this fear?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And unfortunately, the topic of bullying is something that is just becoming so much more prevalent, and it's really unfortunate. I think the tip that I could add and advise for all parents and those of us that are close to our children is you gotta keep the lines of communication open. And you wanna do that before there's a bullying episode. You wanna make sure that your kids feel comfortable talking to you, know that you are there, you're their advocate, you love them, you're there to try to help them navigate some of these really difficult situations. You want to make sure your children know that if they ever feel unsafe about something, that they can talk to you. And it's also nice if they have another trusted adult as well, because there's just some times when kids don't want to go to their parents, but if there's an aunt or a close friend of the family that they're comfortable talking with, it's important that they have that option as well. So I think it's talking to your children about it now and reassuring them that they are not alone. There's a lot of kids who are going through, kind of the mean girl or, the cyberbullying is very important. And I think that's another thing too, as parents, we have to really monitor the social media that our children are on. It's tough. I can tell you, it's really tough because, they have all the different applications now where messages disappear, posts disappear, even though, like I tell my son, nothing disappears because people screenshot it, so you have to be very responsible. But if you notice that, your children aren't using social media, using these applications responsibility, they have to know that there's consequences, where you take their phones away or you take away some of their privileges. But I think for the bullying, open lines of communication is so key, and making sure that your children feel comfortable going to you when there's a problem. And then you take that information further. If it's something going on at the school, then you need to make sure you're talking with school administration about those things as well. But you are your child's biggest advocate, and so I always encourage my patients' parents to make sure that they are advocating and standing up for their children if they have any concern at all.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this next question, I think we've all experienced this. How programmed should we have our children right as school is starting? All the sign-ups for ballet, Little League, art are right at the beginning of school. Everyone's worried about screen time overdosing. I'm worried about over-programming.
Yeah. So I think in society today, we really do over-program our children. We sign them up for so many different things. A lot of us, me included, are helicopter parents where you're kind of hovering over your children at times. But I think you have to look at your child. Every child is different. And you have to look in different families. And just because, you had one child that was very athletic or was involved, very musically inclined, doesn't mean the next child is going to be interested in the same things. Sometimes we really do over-program and over-commit our children. So I think as a parent, you kind of have to do that balancing act and figure out, what are the things that really excite my child? What are their talents? What are things that I feel like they're getting something out of? And think about, why are you doing it? Don't sign up just because, well, everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to sign up for ballet and I'm going to sign up for, Little League. You have to think about, is this something that I think will benefit my child? Do they enjoy it? and make that decision for what is right for your child. But yes, overcommitment is a huge thing in our society today.
Well, and a follow-up question I guess I have is when I was raising my kids, you also are balancing you don't want to raise someone who's a quitter. So you walk that fine line. How do you know when, are my children exhausted or they just don't like it this week? And so what's the message that we send to our kids? Do we make them finish out a semester because they're on a team sport? So you're letting the team down? Or do we say, baseball is not your game, my friend?
Sure. I think that there's a lot of valuable lessons when you have children that are enrolled in sports or enrolled in different activities, because you're teaching them, time commitment. You're teaching them that, like you said, if we're committed to this team, you just don't want to quit in the middle of the season, because how does that affect your other team members? You're teaching them the importance of teamwork, the importance of hard work. So lots and lots of valuable lessons that you can learn. And I say that you can learn these lessons even if your child is not the most athletic, even if they are not the person scoring all the goals. And I think as your children get older, you realize, what are the things that they are most talented in? What are the things that they enjoy? I have to tell you, my daughter, signed her up for soccer. They would put her as goalie, and I would look, and she's sitting there, oh, look at that flower, playing with her hair. Wasn't her thing. So you have to really, again, look at each child individually and think about, what do they enjoy. We really, obviously as pediatricians, we really do encourage you to have your children get active. It doesn't always have to be with an organized sport. When we say we want them to get active, it can be just going outside to the park and, running and playing basketball, playing soccer, in their park, things that don't necessarily involve all these practices, time commitments, financial commitments. We just really want to see kids stay active and stay healthy and really, stress the importance of this from an early age.
Great, thank you. My daughter is going off to college this fall, says this questioner. What kind of checklist and checklist does she need?
So that is a great question. And so I'm going to turn it actually over to Dr. Davidson, because she is actually an adolescent medicine teenager specialist, so she can help us answer this. Because did you see that big smile? When you start talking about teenagers, Dr. Davidson, her face lights up. So Dr. Davidson, I think that's a great question for you to help us with.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Love. I think that looking towards a new semester for college and going away, there's a lot of things that a kiddo needs to do. First of all, you want to make sure all her vaccines are up to date, especially if she's going to be living in a dorm. There are certain vaccines that schools will require, especially living in enclosed spaces, that your teenager will need in order to attend the school and attend the dorm. You want to have a good checklist of the essentials that every dorm needs, of course, but also having your child, letting them know that they should continue to check in with you throughout the semester, making sure that you guys set up maybe a weekly phone date so that you know things that are going okay or something needs help, and also making sure that your child has a resource in the city or town that they're going to college in, especially if they're going away from home, a contact or maybe some sort of method of support. If you're religious, maybe a church or a community kind of aspect that they would engage in that's not just the school, so that they have other adults in the community that they can reach out to for help. And then, of course, all the dorm essentials for living, and something that you should always review with your new adult as they go off to college is definitely food as well. So dorm food is not always the most nutritious, and so equipping them with some basic tools on how to cook a few meals, or finding inventive ways to use the dorm's capabilities or their apartment's capabilities to create healthy, nutritious meals while they're away at college to avoid that freshman 15 would be a great way to set them up for success that semester.
That's perfect, thank you. Okay, yes, we have more questions. Last year, our son's kinder teacher brought up the possibility of attention deficit disorder. We had him screened, and the screener was not concerned. Should I mention this, though, to his first grade teacher, or should I let her make up her own mind and not try and sway her one way or the other?
Sure. So I think if you ever have a concern about your child, whether it's a learning disability or something like ADHD, I think it never hurts to bring it up to the teacher and ask for their observations and get their feedback and their input on that. Your pediatrician, we are ADHD experts. We actually see quite a bit of ADHD, so we can help you kind of think through, should we test your child again? Is there perhaps something else that we could be missing? So if you ever have any concerns about your children, especially as it's related to their education, to their learning environment, don't be afraid to speak up. Again, you are their biggest advocate, biggest cheerleader, so I think that it is reasonable to talk to the next teacher and make sure you have that line of communication, because maybe they don't notice something now, but since you brought it up, they're paying a little bit closer attention and they may have some observations that they want to share with you. So definitely don't be afraid to ask questions if you have concerns about your children.
Great. New year, new habits. What are your thoughts on paying or rewarding for grades, or paying and or rewarding for chores?
Okay. I think that there's no right answer for that, because you would have some people who would be along the lines that, chores are, necessary if you're going to be a part of this house, since parents are working very hard to keep their kids fed and a roof over their head. But what I will say as a pediatrician, we do like positive reinforcement, and positive reinforcement works for a lot of different behaviors. Sometimes with younger children, it's trying to reinforce them if their behavior was really great when you went somewhere and you said, gosh, that was really, really good. We're going to reward you with a treat. With younger children, I loved kind of, reward charts where you just, if they did something, like, so say it's chores that you're assigning them, and, they were consistent about it for 7 days, 10 days, and you kind of put a star, a check. At the end of that time, you get a special treat. So I think as a family, you have to think about what kind of rewards we want to offer. So as they get a little bit older, the little checklist, the stars, that doesn't work as much for those teenagers. They're sometimes a little bit more enticed by things like, money and other stuff. But you have to think about, what do you feel like would be a good reward, or maybe it's a privilege that they don't get every day. So you kind of have to think about it, but positive reinforcement works very well most of the time.
Thank you. I am in lunchbox hell. If it's not white, brown, or beige, it won't get eaten. Either all of the other mothers are lying, or I flunked childhood nutrition. And before you ask, yes, we model good eating behavior in our home. Help.
School lunches is tough, especially if you have to prepare them. I think one of the things that helps a lot is when you get your child, if they're old enough, get them involved with it. So let them help you plan the menu for the week if you want to do that. Let them help you kind of fix that lunch, make that sandwich. Sometimes you can make it fun. I used to cut, you have little cookie cutters and you can make the sandwich the shape of a heart or a star. But a lot of times I don't have time for that, because I'm a working mom. So it can be tough. But I think if you involve the child and ask them what they like, sometimes you do have to change it up a bit. I mean, there's some children that they could eat, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich every single day, but there's other children that get bored with that, and they're like, oh, again, the same turkey and ham sandwich every single day. So you have to start thinking about different ways to change it up. We have a former colleague of mine that worked with us at UT Physicians. She's now moved to Virginia, has a wonderful website. She is actually a feeding and nutrition specialist. She's a general pediatrician, but her practice is based around healthy habits. It's Dr. Yum, and that is a wonderful website. She even has like a meal maker machine on it. So if you put on there, this is what I have in my refrigerator, it gives you like a recipe. And so it's really, really cool. It talks about a lot of ways to disguise kind of healthy things, healthy vegetables, kind of the sneaky chef. But Dr. Yum, it's based off of Dr. Namali Fernando, who trained here in Houston with us at UT and used to be on our faculty. But I really highly recommend that when you feel like you're in that slum. So it can be really, really hard, but really make your children a part of the meal planning for your lunches. Older children really should be packing their own lunches. As teenagers, we want to make sure that you are allowing them to have some independence, because one day they are going to go off to college, or they're going to be home, by themselves as an adult, and you want to make sure they say, I don't even know how to make a sandwich, because they never had to do that, or they don't know how to just do a basic meal. So try to involve your kids as much as possible, but it's tough. It can be tough. I've been there.
Okay, we're going to have two more questions, and then I think we will be able to, unfortunately, have to say goodbye. Our time will be up. But one question that keeps coming up is, what is the algorithm for how much screen time, and all screens, TV, et cetera, per age group, I guess. How much screen time should our kids, or how little should they be having?
Sure, that's a good question.
Especially starting with the real little ones.
Okay, so children under 2, a few years ago, the AAP changed their guidelines based on different age groups. And for our younger kids who are under 2, they really don't recommend much screen time, but if they're going to have screen time, we really do recommend that it's high quality programming, and that you as the adult or the parent, that you are watching that with them. So if it's something educational, you can kind of communicate with them, we're learning our ABCs, or look, what animal is that on the screen? So high quality. For toddlers and kids under 6, what we will say is really an hour a day is okay, but again, we really recommend high quality programming, and that the parents are monitoring, or either, with them watching that. For older kids, we really say that it's something that each family has to decide what are the screen time limits, and they have to make sure that expectations are set with their children, and say no more than an hour a day, 2 hours a day. You have to say, does homework count on that? Because a lot of times now kids are doing homework on their iPads or on the computer, but you have to really set boundaries, and there has to be consequences if your children are not following the rules. And if not, why set them? Because they'll take advantage of that. So it's definitely different for each age group, but younger kids, we really don't recommend much screen time, but if they're gonna have screen time, high quality programming. So things that that you have watched, that you feel like it's high quality.
And this is probably somewhat of a follow-up, and it is our last question. How do you get your children to start a good habit? So whether it's brushing their teeth, or packing their own lunch, or getting to bed and actually staying in the bed when you tell them to, but starting a good habit. I thought it was a great question.
I think that is a really great question, and it's not an easy answer. But what I will say is children like routine. So if the bedtime is 8 o'clock, you got to be firm with that, and you have to try to stick on routine on a daily basis. Brushing their teeth, again, the routine is we get dressed, you have your breakfast, we go brush our teeth. Right before we go to bed, we brush our teeth. Routine is key. And then, kids love to be praised. They really do like to make their parents happy. So positive reinforcement, great job when they're, sticking to the routine and they're doing a really good job. But what I will say is parenting is a hard job. And even as a pediatrician, parenting is a really hard job. And I don't know if it's harder because you know so much, but it can be a really tough job. And that's why I always love to tell my parents, especially new parents, you're doing a great job. It's not easy for any of us. But it is also one of the most rewarding jobs. So Thank you all for allowing me to answer questions and give you guys a little bit of back to school and summer safety tips. We'll be around for a little bit to answer any questions, and I'm going to turn it back over to Karen. Thank you.
So wonderful. Dr. Love, though parenting is without a doubt a journey and not a destination, you have at least provided us with a most valuable map. I'd also like to thank Dr. Asha Davidson for your diligent responses to online questions that we did not get a chance to address this evening, and to ABC 13 always for giving us this incredible platform to inform and inspire the Houston community to lead healthier lives. I would also like to thank UT Physicians, they are our partners in health at McGovern Medical School, and they teach, train, treat, and provide the highest quality of care for our entire families. For more information, or if you need a physician, UTphysicians.com. Tonight was the third UTHealth House Calls for 2019, and it's an honor always to partner with an organization like Mercedes-Benz, who really does walk the walk and talk the talk when it comes to safety, whether it be safety in their engineering or safety in the information that they provide to the community. Thank you to Steve Lasher, the owner, Mike Batchis, and of course Derek Brown of Mercedes-Benz of Sugarland for making this evening possible. Our next UT Health House Calls topic is August 15th at 6:30 p.m. on abc13.com, and the topic is dishing up food as medicine. Food as medicine. So, may biomedical science discover that chocolate pecan molten lava smothered in vanilla ice cream really is indeed the cure to the 5 most devastating illnesses of our time? And if not, we always have kale. So, to view tonight's program, please visit abc13.com. Thank you all for joining us. Our studio audience, please stick around and visit with us, and we hope to hear from the rest of you next month. Thank you.
Okay. Mic on. Okay, studio audience, since you're here, we do